Now, this is not an easy topic to discuss, but it is most critical. So we're going to begin with a crash course in nature. And that's when the highs and lows crash together. What happens? Or we could say when fire and ice meet, darkness prevails, and the funnel fueled by flooding carbon rises by the spinning forces of the crash. The faster the spin, the more it destroys everything in its path. Well, the brain has countless spinning, transporting funnels. But when there is a flood of firebound hormones fueled by high-powered nerves and emotions, destruction may occur, depending on the speed and all of the connected dots. Remember I said we have to have discernment. All the dots have to be connected. Now we're going to reiterate some points that we covered in video 1 because we'll be adding building blocks here. The body is engineered to protect life. That's one's own and another's life. The master gland, the pituitary, is in charge of the life cycles. That's sleep, appetite, sex drive, and outlook on life. The outlook is just as critical as sleep, eating, drinking, and the life-extending sex drive. Life-extending is a key word here. Therefore, the built-in guard to protect life across the board is a lightning bolt response that turns ordinary capabilities into supernatural feats. It has been known that an individual has lifted tons of weight, like a car, in order to save a person trapped underneath. Jumping 5 times of one's height has been recorded. Now, this is momentarily spontaneous reaction to protect life that is only possible by the extreme low and high states. The digestive and eliminatory systems, not needed for fast running or fighting, shuts down. And that energy, plus some high-octane fuel, goes to the heart, lungs, nerves, muscles, eyes, and brain for quicker, focused thinking. Once again, focus is a key link here, because we're talking about mental, emotional, and sight. Well, this is the momentarily state that meets the critical need to save life. But what happens when the high-powered hormones keep coming like an open floodgate and it is not relative to protecting life? Instead, the message is coming from another source, and the focus to kill has now taken over one's life. The eyes and the other 4 senses remain on high, while the master gland and outlook counterbalance with proportional low. The mission to destroy compares to a nightmare that runs all day long. Dreams project real-like images. Thus, the same sort of scenes with appearing people fighting for their life in the daytime take place. See, that same video just keeps reeling day and night with the same messages. The misconstrued translation of the fight-flight syndrome is now the flight to run and kill the people fighting for their lives. It's that simple, yet so very complex. The fight for life is confirmed when the video ends with the conclusion of all is dead. What causes the brain to cross the line, to get to the point of being driven to destroy? Now, this is not absolute. Everyone is different, and reactions to any mind-altering drug, prescribed and street drugs, are variable, and many factors must be considered. We're just going to use some examples here. When a person is depressed, one type of medication is given to uplift. But if hyperactivity is the problem, a suppressant becomes the outpour of cooling-related hormones. So we're just going to apply the simple analogy of warm and cool. But what happens when fire and ice are both fighting for a dominant position on a long-term basis? Now that right there, that tells the whole story. And we have to think about during fever, the shaking nerves become the release for the building pressure. So you have chills, and then the body shakes. When there is an outpour of fire-bound hormones fueled by overfiring nerves, all the while the memory of the suppressants is activated by the rebounding highs, it seems reasonable to say that the heart and emotions become detached to the pendulum swings, the extreme highs and lows. The hormones, nerves, and five senses now control the continual fire cycle peak. So let's look here. This is Dylan's picture. He was one of the shooters in the Columbine school shooting. His intentions, plan of action revealed. Well, he wrote the word fire in all caps. Here it is. And this is Nicholas Cruz from Florida. He was the school shooter in Parkland, Florida. And he wrote burn. I got more information from reading their diaries, just their notes and doodling, than anything else. Because Cruz is telling you here the source and what he was driven to do. Burn, kill, destroy. So we have fire, and now we have burn. That is being transcribed from their brain to the revealing note-taking. And Cruz tells you, what does it tell you to do? Remember, he mentioned marijuana, Xanax, and drink yourself to death. So he revealed everything that had caused him to arrive at this point of killing 17 people. So every mysterious thing about his behavior was written down on paper for everyone to see, to know precisely what had been driving him to this state of mind. The body is designed to remain in a balanced state, but when crises arise, the built-in mechanism kicks in just long enough for life to be saved, but the long-term flooding elevated hormones fueled by frayed nerves flips the coin, and the pituitary and the dark outlook on life triggers the heart and the emotions that no longer can distinguish the emotional or physical pain of others. In fact, one of the school shooters had no sensation of physical pain by what the teachers and principals had said. I think that was the 15-year-old in Paducah, Kentucky. So the drug for hyperactivity or depression may work until the first rebound, and then when another antidepressant is added to the existing conflicting messages, additional side effects and a greater rebound are going to follow. Look at the side effects of each medication. Suicide is prevalent. The pituitary is following directions by its lead position, the master gland. The extreme low is balanced by the proportional high, the mission to end life. Now this is where all the dots have to be connected, just like what we had said previously. The pituitary has lost its meaning of life, a void. The heart and emotions go into shutdown, reinforcing the void. Flooding hormones, flight to destroy life, firing frayed nerves, fighting to cope with the pull between fire and ice. In nature, when fire and ice clash, rising funnel grows dark and ominous-looking. Cat 5 intensity proves to be destruction of everything in its path. The brain follows the principles of nature. At this point, the brain's 1 million funnels spinning at Cat 4 or 5 intensity is producing the images of kill in one's mind night and day. The dreams at night are confirmed by the overpowering visions the next day that last all day long. All five senses are turned on high alert. The eye's focus matches the pituitary and the flooding hormones. The line has been crossed, and the course is now a matter of when it happens. Now let's go back to the brain's 1 million funnels, or baby funnels stacked within larger parent funnels. The energy is spinning and the nerves are vibrating. I found this picture and I thought it was a good visual for you to see how there's so many, just countless funnels in the brain. Here's 1, 2, 3 inside of the parent funnel. But look at the eye here. It's an open network of nerves and blood vessels. Now that's important because funnels relate to light and sound waves. This network is in unison. But let's look at Dylan's drawing. Wow. This is the image of the battlefield. And it looks like the same network of the brain, but it's tightened and dark. His brain's nerves show entanglement, death, and darkness. And because of his focus, it has been confirmed by his eyes and the sense of touch and the movement when he's writing. Everything is demanding confirmation at this point. Oh, look at this. There's the eye. And here's a funnel with a whipping tail. Now this is my rendition, but the medical illustration shows the same thing. Shows the tail, believe it or not. I'm just enhancing here. And I've had this illustration in my archives for, 20 and 25 years. A long time. So the eye of the funnel is the eye. The eyes actually serve as the outlet for building pressure, just like the nerves. So the pull between no emotions and the message of high, driven to kill, is bound to show in the eyes that translate symbols. Think about that. See, you have the funnels in the brain going from the extreme high to the low, spinning to a Cat 5 intensity, and it's not actually spinning. It's not like when we perceive dizziness. This is the frequency, the vibration, the energy. But it's projecting images, and then it's confirmed by the eyes, and the funnels, they connect. So the pull on one funnel is the pull of the eye's funnel. And you get the distorted look, which matches the pituitary's distorted outlook. Now you can see all these connections and how they fall right in place. So we're going to show you, this is my drawing of the pituitary and hypothalamus, and it is embellished, but basically the same outline. So we could say this is the fish, and here's an egg in the fin of the fish. This is actually an open space, but looked like an egg to me. And here's a heart. But this is the hypothalamus. And I've added, I think this is probably some embellishment, but the rest of this is true to form. And the hypothalamus is in control of the hormones and the emotions. So we have the butterfly that relates to light and life extension. That's in nature and in the body. And it is rooted as one, we'll say, with this fish. This is a tree stalk. And it is called a stalk. Once again, this has been in some old material that I've had for a long time. So let's look at the backbone of life. Here's the hypothalamus, and this butterfly is at the top of the backbone, and this butterfly is at the bottom. It upholds the backbone of life. Isn't that interesting? So, let's look at these two images. This is normal, and this is a murderous brain. This is so obvious. Look at the butterfly here, outlined in the blue. That's a butterfly. When you actually see drawings of the brain, it really looks like a butterfly. But there's movement in there. When they're taking these scans, the brain is pulsating and firing, and so you're not going to have a perfect image, even in a normal brain. But look at the murderous brain. The butterfly's missing. It's scattered. There's no definition. The backbone of life is missing. Darkness prevails in the brain and the light track. The eyes project darkness, no emotions, which is governed by the deep-rooted butterfly that backs the life cycle, gears, and outlook on life. Now you can see all of the connections. Wow, these you wouldn't even recognize. Talking about an explosion. And over here, you can see this one is more normal, but it's starting to expand. Look at this. I think all they'd have to do is take some brain scans where there's suspicion. The left is always yelling, "Take the guns away." People that have kill on their mind, well, they're not going to be concerned about breaking the law to steal a gun. The trigger to kill many times may be a long history of mind-altering drugs, prescribed and street use. But all the dots have to be connected in order to see the bigger picture. And remember that medical science does not recognize butterflies in the brain or the backbone. So this would have to be revealed so it could be studied as patterns. For the wrap-up and reiteration of some driving points. I was told years ago by a nurse that the meaning of pharma is deadly. In order for the side effects of a deadly dose to be known, a drug has to be 51% deadly. Well, that's a scary thought if it includes the antidepressants, where some include the side effects of suicide. Now, I could not reach the nurse, so I turned to Google. The medieval Latin meaning was medicines, potions, spells, poisoning, witchcraft, remedy, and cure. I guess we could say what we don't know won't hurt us. Basically, the mass shooters that had a record of mind-altering drugs and or street drugs, well, this is relative to the course according to following the protocol of the outlook on life, governed by the master gland, backed by the hormone arsenal, and the emotions that stay in sync with the thinking part of the brain, which conducts the transactions based on the hormones. So what goes around comes around. The meaning of life gets lost in the shuffle when the mock of fight-flight syndrome is ongoing. The flight becomes the fight to destroy a life. Now add the high of street drugs and alcohol to the ongoing transpiring high in one's brain, which is then reinforced by the proportional lows. That's detachment of the heart and emotions pertaining to life. When participating in the videos based on killing, and they are the one that conquered, the make-believe scenes become real. Likewise, watching like movies confirm their own thoughts, visions, and plans that must be carried out to the end. killing many at one time, matches the encrypted message of the high-powered hormones. We want to make this perfectly clear. Children or adults that are on mind-altering drugs do not necessarily have the rebounds to this degree. But we also want to show that when you go back through the history of some of the mass shooters, the records reveal evidence of several mind-altering drugs being given for an extended period of time. The brother of the Las Vegas shooter said he'd been on medications for a long time. More than likely, he drank a lot of alcohol since he was a big gambler. The toxicology report of the Dayton shooter showed antidepressants, cocaine, and alcohol. Sandy Hook's shooter, well, he had been on medication for an extended period of time. The shooter of Parkland, Florida, actually said it was marijuana, Xanax, and alcohol. The prescribed drug slips through the cracks of background checks. Also, the street drugs are not considered the source. It is always the guns. But the trigger in the brain that shows explosive-looking images, at best, or no sign of the backbone of life, must first be exposed before that phase behind a gun is known as a mass shooter. I was put on a pain blocker for migraines, and the only pain blocked was the feelings of compassion for others' pain. After taking myself off after 1 day's dose, I stayed awake for 4 days and 3 nights. The fear of going to sleep and having horrific nightmares kept me awake, which was the rebound of the pain-suppressive drug. The driving point, my emotions for others' pain were the only things suppressed. When checking the ingredients, one of the chemicals was an explosive used in salt mining along the ocean. I was so fearful of going to sleep, and the rebounding high of suppression was no sleep, while the recording in my brain continued to reel all day long for 4 days and all night long for 3 nights. That was the last medication, including over-the-counter, that I took. And that was 31 years ago, even though I continued to have 2 migraines a month. My physical pain was more bearable than being controlled by the lack of understanding for another's emotional and physical pain. That quick, in 1 day, my sleep cycle, controlled by the pituitary in charge of the outlook on life, had been altered. Now, my outlook had not changed, but that was just 1 dose. So that's why I say everyone is different. You can't put anyone in a box of absolute. So when I told the doctor that I quit taking the drug after 1 day, he said, "Oh my, that could have been dangerous." Well, we know what he meant by that. But to me, the danger was where it took my brain and mind in a very short time, while the projected images seemed so very real. Visuals in my brain that I could see, hear, taste, touch, and smell did not have a pause or stop button for 4 days and 3 nights. Crossing the line of the built-in life-death, fight, flight trigger sends the outpouring hormones fueled by explosive nerves and elevated senses into a tailspin. The balancing low is a cold heart, low self-esteem, dark outlook on life. The mindfulness to end life becomes the focus, and the eyes reveal that focus that stands out as a blank stare, coldness, detachment, crazy, and downright eerie looking. You've actually seen a thumbnail of the class that is called Symbolic Neurophysics 101, and this relating and understanding of the brain is based on how the brain is wired to understand symbolism. Those that are deaf understand the world through hand signs, and now we have seen the sign of a hand that is responsible for connections and the transfer of chemicals. Babies can speak by symbolism before their brain has developed to communicate with words. We dive into the many compulsive obsessive behavioral syndromes, and you will have a total understanding of autism, Tourette's, compulsive hand washing, hair pulling, hoarding, etc. Even though we have to step into quantum world a bit in order to understand decimals and a frequency code, a fifth grader will understand and enjoy the journey and how we walk through the brain according to the symbolic map. But first, creation in the womb must be presented, which was put on the back burner so that the God's warning signs could be shared during the current time of happening. The rash of mass killings, July and August 2019, led us to the components of the brain, and it confirms God's warnings and signs of the times. We have the God signs that reveal those killed by the hands of others went to heaven. Some of the validation, like Kate Steinle, is mind-blowing. Those that question if there is a God and heaven, well, they'll be convinced without a shadow of doubt.